Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside John.
Hello.
Just the two of us tonight, bud.
It is. Everyone else
Um,
is far too busy for us.
Clearly. Apologies to anybody who was waiting on us and anticipating our start time tonight. It was my fault. Hands up. I got a bit delayed, so we're about 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes delayed from start. But anyway, if you're listening to this in the podcast, it doesn't really matter because you're listening to this whenever you want to. As usual, this is Door 14 Hockey Podcast, a podcast pretty much about the world of hockey that looks at everything from right across the world, from here in the UK and right across the globe. Stories that we think are relevant and stories that we just kind of have hit the headlines that we want to talk about. John, how are you doing?
Better now. Bit of a rough week last week. Got back from the trip to Guildford with Dave, which was great. Once again, cannot give enough thanks to the Guildford Flames organisation for the access, and to Ben O'Connor for his time when we were there. I haven't had a chance to stitch together the few bits and pieces of footage that I took while we were down sort of on the travel to Guildford and everything, because last week I was sick as a dog. Off work, whole family was off. We were in the plague house, so don't think it was something I picked up in Guildford. I think it's something that my lovely petri dish of a daughter has brought back from nursery, which she is still recovering from, having had to come home early again today from nursery. But we're on the mend, everything's getting better, and just glad to have a nice quiet hour and a half or so with you talking hockey.
Grand. And I believe she's definitely on the mend, because when I messaged you earlier on to see if she was okay, you were like, oh, she's fine, she's sitting in the corner here eating a digestive biscuit. So clearly that's a win, shall we say.
It is always a win.
There is one of our usual co-hosts. Aaron is currently in Boston, listening in live from Boston. Hello, Aaron. Aaron was making us very jealous this week. I think it was Tuesday night, maybe, or it was. I'm kind of confused with my days this week. I think it was Tuesday night. He was at the Boston Calgary game, in which Boston lost, but he was at TD Gardens, and he's at the Boston. He's in Boston, so why not? So, and he was obviously
working
representing
hard.
the Belfast. He's obviously representing the Belfast Giants as well at the same time. So working hard, as you say. And Dave's in Scotland right now. He's over your side of the water.
He is.
He's got family commitments tonight, but I think he's going to try and. I think you're joining him this weekend in. I want to say Glasgow for the Glasgow game.
No, I'm going to burst his bubble right here. I haven't had a chance to say to Dave in person yet. I will not be catching up with him this weekend. I won't be attending either game this weekend. I had thought about going to Glasgow on Saturday. However, an opportunity has popped up for me to go instead to Murrayfield to watch Scotland play France in the Six Nations. So I will be taking that offer instead, unfortunately.
Just priorities, John. Priorities. Should be getting them right. As usual, we start off our podcast as we do every week, and we look at the standings right across the Elite Ice Hockey League here in the UK. So let's get started. Sitting on top of the league in first place, we have the Sheffield Steelers, still sitting top, still holding that position with 33 games played, 59 points. The Cardiff Devils have moved into second since our last podcast, with 32 games played, 45 points. The Guildford Flames are now in third with 33 games played, 41 points. And the Belfast Giants are in fourth with 34 games played, 40 points. The Coventry Blaze sit in fifth with 33 games played, 38 points. The Dundee Stars are in sixth with 34 games played, 36 points. Manchester sit seventh with 34 games played, 34 points. And Glasgow sit in eighth with 34 games played, 32 points. The Five Flyers in ninth with 36-29. And the Nottingham Panthers still unfortunately sitting on bottom with 31 games played, 25 points. John, let's switch back and look at the top of the league. Let's go back to there. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, we were looking at a very different standings, if you will. Obviously, Sheffield were still sitting top, but the Belfast Giants were there in second, and Cardiff were sitting in third. After this past weekend of play, where the Cardiff Devils took on the Belfast Giants in the SSA Arena, the Belfast Giants losing both games. Cardiff Devils pushed themselves up into second place, just behind Sheffield Steelers, and Guildford have also moved into that third place, obviously after the Giants' 2 defeats this past weekend. I suppose the first question, we kind of asked this question the last podcast, but I'm going to ask it because we're now 2 weeks on since our last podcast, and the Sheffield Steelers still look dominant. Are still there. What's that? 14 points clear at the top. What's going to move them? Is there anything that's going to move them? Is it a kind of a moment now where we're sitting right at the start of February, the first weekend of games in second weekend of games in February? Yeah, second weekend of games in February.
Yep.
Are we kind of saying Sheffield are walking away with this league this year? Is there anything that Cardiff could do to kind of? I'm going to guess statistically, a lot of the other teams maybe are kind of out. But is there anything you could see that Sheffield would hamper Sheffield's win, I guess, the league this year so far?
Effectively, I think I said it 2 weeks ago as well. I think Sheffield are champions elect. I don't realistically think that there's any way of looking at it. Mathematically, I think possibly every team as low as 5th maybe still has a shout at it. The reality is very, very different. The Steelers have not had a period of intense injury problems. They haven't had guys that have been sitting out for weeks and weeks the same way that it seems 9 other teams have. It will take a Sheffield implosion. It will take something serious to go wrong in Sheffield for the Steelers not to walk away with the league title at this point. I very much expect by early March that they will be crowned. I think they'll have a couple of weeks of being able to ride the championship and get ready for postseason. As short as it is, in the UK. But I that's my honest opinion. I'm a Giants fan first and foremost. I just don't see it. And other teams are now starting to change their tune about what success looks like for the rest of the season. And that is now starting to bleed into some of the conversations for the likes of Guildford. Well, Guildford obviously have another hand in another trophy, which we're going to come on and talk about. But the Giants in particular, the Blaze, I've definitely heard it from them as well. Cardiff maybe haven't heard it. They might still have an outside opportunity with the league. But conversations are starting to move towards playoffs. And I think that's sensible now. The Giants really haven't had a clear run at things without injury. And now I think postseason and that short form playoff series is what they're starting to look at now. And I think if you're anywhere south of 3rd, that's what you're looking at now. You can't have a weekend like the one that Belfast had against Cardiff and still think you're in a shout with the league.
No, and I guess to echo what you were just saying there in relation to what teams are saying and kind of what kind of is starting to come across in terms of like what they're preparing for and what the season's going to look, what a successful season looks like. I did see a thing coming out. I think it was potentially after, I know Jacob Friend, I think, got injured this past weekend in the SSC Arena. Went down. It was quite a breathtaking moment again in the arena where a player went down. Well, we say that, but it's quite loud as well in some ways. But a player went down, and then again they brought out the dividers, the screens, the screen off things. But there was a conversation then, I think the next day, and I don't know if it was Jacob Friend or if it was someone the next day, but there was a conversation being had about the Giants season so far, and there was a comment made by someone in the media. I don't know if it was then reported by the Belfast Telegraph or something, what that the look forward is to the end of season playoff run, and that was very much talked about in the media this past week as well. So clearly there is a look ahead of like what we need to focus on now and where our attentions switch to. Looking down, as you were saying,
Marty,
yep.
I've got your favourite feature.
Oh no.
So I mentioned this. You've obviously been busy this evening, but I've got your favourite feature and I just want to bring it up right now. GB, we're going to talk about it in a second, are taking part in the Olympic qualifiers, and it is the end of the first period against China. Would you like to know the current score at the end of 20 minutes of action?
Tell me the current score, John, after 20 minutes of action.
The current score between Great Britain and China is 2-0 to Great Britain. The first goal coming from number 14, Liam Kirk, and the second goal coming from Mark Richardson, number 17.
Nice. We will be talking about, obviously, Team GB and the Olympic qualifiers in the first period, I believe. I think we've got it in there, and because it will bring up quite an interesting topic for this coming weekend in the Elite League. So we will talk about it. We are going to come back to it. So a nice segue into that topic later on. Just
Marty, the
continue.
puck is down for period 2.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on with the league standings, John, we were talking obviously about that top part. Obviously, the bottom end, we're looking towards Dundee, Manchester, Glasgow Flyers, and Nottingham Panthers. Obviously, at the moment, Glasgow sitting in that 8th position, Fife down in that 9th position. Still, obviously, we talk about still games to go within the season. We still got another pretty much 2 full months of hockey to play. So things could, change significantly there at the bottom. I mean, going with your gut at this time and kind of where the current form is sitting, what's your true thoughts around who's going to clinch those last couple of places? I.e., who do you feel is going to be the final 2 bottom teams that are going to be knocked out of the playoff run?
My gut tells me, unfortunately, that Tom Coolan is not going to get a shot at postseason in the Elite League, at least in his first season. I sincerely hope he gets another shot. They're just not putting it together at this point. The other team that I don't think is going to make it, Glasgow. They are imploding, and I understand at the minute that Nottingham are sitting adrift by a fair number of points. And again, they have been, up until this last weekend, struggling to find form, struggling to find wins. We all know what happened at the start of the season for Nottingham, and we all understand why potentially that the guys on that team are struggling. But they got a home win, an away win this past weekend. With their games in hand, they have the opportunity to potentially leapfrog into 7th or 8th. I think we'll see them take that spot in 8th. If I'm being totally honest, I don't think we see them miss out, at least through the first round. But if Glasgow and Fife continue to play the way that they are, I think, unfortunately, it's 2 Scottish teams who are missing out again.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with you. I think that's where my thought process was kind of going in that same direction as you were. Exactly the same. Any other?
To throw this up, we've got another score update. I wasn't aware of this one, so Anthony, thanks for this one. So live score updates. This is the EIHL National Cup semi-final, second leg. MK against Swindon, and we're now all square. 3-2 on the night to MK, but 5-5 on aggregate, Marty. This is incredible stuff.
This is not going to get tiring before the end of the podcast, I swear. Okay. Any other comments on the league standings there, John, before we switch our attention across the water? Nah. Okay. Let's switch our attention then across the water and head towards the NHL. And we're looking at the wild card spots as they currently sit here at the start of February. So we have about 2-3 months fully there. Before the end of the season. Oh my God, I got distracted by Dave's comment there. We're going to throw it up, Dave Eaton, our other co-host who is absent tonight, just saying it's like he's really there. Thanks, Dave. Yep, don't encourage him. Thank you.
Just call me Podcast Cammy.
Eastern Conference and Atlantic Division, Boston Bruins, as we mentioned earlier on, had a loss this week, but it doesn't matter because they still sit in top, and they're holding the top spot, sitting in first place with 50 games played, 71 points, with a nice dominant lead there at the top. The Florida Panthers sit second with 50 games played, 66 points, and the Toronto Maple Leafs sit in third with 49 games played, 60 points. Metropolitan Division then, New York sit on top with 51 games played, 67 points. Carolina Hurricanes are in second with 49 games played, 61 points, and the Philadelphia Flyers are in third with 51 games played, 58 points, and the 2 wildcard spots are currently held by Tampa and Detroit. Western side of things in Central Division, the Colorado Avalanche are sitting top with 51 games played, 68 points. Dallas Stars are in second with 51 games played, 68 points, and the Winnipeg Jets are in third with 48 games played, 65 points. Pacific Division and the last division is Vancouver Canucks sitting top with 50 games played, 73 points. Vegas Golden Knights are in second with 51 games played, 66 points, and the Oilers are in third, 46 games played, 59 points, and the wildcard spots are currently held by LA Kings and St. Louis Blue. John, not really too much change since our podcast 2 weeks ago. Maybe just those wildcard spots have slightly kind of shifted a bit. But nothing really, anything there that's completely jumped out at you? Anything you feel has changed significantly, or any comments there?
Not massively. I'm trying my best to remember. Are the Oilers still on? No, they lost the streak, didn't they, last night?
They did.
So the streak they were on for tying the Kings last night. I think they got to 16, and they were hitting. They would have hit 17 with a win last night, but took the L. So unfortunately, it snaps the streak, and out goes the chance to tie or even beat the NHL win streak by potentially hitting 18. So sad to see, but they're still an absolute wagon. As opposed to the Preds, who are so up and down, I'm getting seasick watching them.
I mean, we talked about this in the last podcast, and I still stand by it. I mean, the Edmonton Oilers, just the comeback they've had and that bounce back is just second to none. We talked about this previously about how the fact that the Edmonton Oilers did start off in a very rocky at the start of the season, but to be sitting at the moment in the third place, and a good third place too in terms of points. Difference between the next ones, and again it is that winning streak that obviously has helped kind of push them further along. So I'm sure Conor McDavid is pretty happy there in Edmonton right now, and I'm glad that he's stuck with his choices and didn't make a dirty jump as everybody was talking about. Yeah, that's really.
And we'll talk about the NHL a little bit as well in period 2.
Correct.
With obviously what transpired this last weekend.
Correct. We will indeed. So we will come back to the NHL in our second period of hockey. But in the meantime, we have nothing else for our intro part of our podcast. So what we'll do is we'll get stuck into our podcast and we'll get stuck into our period 1 of hockey. Okay, period 1 is a roundup of news stories that are happening close to home here in the UK. Let's start off. You already alluded to this, and we talked about this slightly earlier there. We talked about the obviously the league standings is one area where the Sheffield Steelers have a potential to win one trophy, but they are now in contention for a second trophy this season also, and this trophy will come. Decision for this trophy.
Oh, we have a goal! We have a goal! Great Britain have scored again in the 6th minute of the second period. Marty, I will bring you the goal scorer as soon as I know who it is.
Do you know what we're going to have complaints about in this podcast, John?
Not enough me.
No, do you know the fact that we're listening on headphones, and people tend to listen to our podcast maybe when they're out and about and they're on their headphones. Yet the spike at some point whenever you jump and get excited about something, and then there's going to be just deafened by the headphone if they're had it up already loud. So
do you know what though? It's going to be the only part of the podcast that Campbell can hear in his car, so it'll be fine.
As I was saying before you rudely interrupted, the Challenge Cup will probably be decided before the League Cup. The league is decided, and the Challenge Cup this year will be. We'll see the Sheffield Steelers face off against the Guildford Flames. That Challenge Cup final will take place on the 13th of March in Sheffield in the. What do they call it? Is it Motorport? No.
Utilitaire
Arena on the 13th of March. Steelers have begun selling tickets, and the prices are £15 for adults, £10 concession, and a select number of seats will be out for the Guildford Flames, obviously, to purchase.
They got released today.
Today, correct. It was interesting, though, that this was all put out quite early, obviously.
Oh, we have a goal! We have a goal, Swindon. Unfortunately, going down by 1. Milton Keynes 4-2 on the night, 6-5 on aggregate.
You done?
We have another goal! I'm not even joking. So, Liam Kirk scored the 3rd goal for GB in the 2nd period, but we have a 4th for GB in the 8th minute. I will bring you the goal scorer as soon as I have it.
Okay, are you done now?
Challenge Cup.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Anyway, Challenge Cup.
Challenge Cup. Yeah. Sheffield Steelers take on the Guildford Flames. John, I mean, in terms of we talked about the Guildford Flames this season. Coming off last season. Had such a good run last season. Were just in reach of winning the league. Obviously, it didn't quite pan out for them because the Belfast Giants obviously took that last year. But I think there was a lot of conversations had about, how Guildford were under a lot of pressure this year, given the fact that they maybe couldn't replicate what they did last year. Do you think for fans, and do you think the fact that they've got this the Challenge Cup final is in some ways at least a bit of an icing on a cake in terms of I suppose, well, not icing on the cake. I suppose that's the wrong phrasing. I suppose what's the phrase I'm looking for? Kind of fill me in there. I can't even think what kind of phrase I'm looking for. Do you think it's a good, like, I suppose, prize, if you will, to have got to they got to the finals of the Challenge Cup? Is it something that's going to be enough? I'm trying to say.
Honestly, no. Unless they walk away with the trophy, and that's a huge ask against an ascendant Sheffield team. However, I do feel that these short form tournaments suit the smaller teams. So, yeah, it's not a success until it's a proper success, until it is a trophied success. And just to bring the news, I did know this, but Anthony's throwing it in there as well. The fourth goal for GB came from Cam Crutchlow, with the apples from Sean Norris in his GB senior debut as well, getting a point, getting himself on the board as well, and from Robert Lakovitz as well.
Great job. Thank you for that update.
But essentially, no, it's not a success unless Guildford actually finish the job this time. If they don't finish the job, it's another failure. And especially given all the opportunities that have come Guildford's way since they joined the Elite League, this is their second final that they'll have reached, the second Challenge Cup final. They had the run for the league last year. They haven't converted any of this almost success yet. They need to convert something. Although I did notice as well, an interesting stat from the Elite League. This is the first All-England Challenge Cup final since 2012? Something like that. So it's the first time that it's been two English teams going for it. So obviously we've had Belfast, who've made it to quite a few finals. Cardiff have obviously been thereabouts as well. And we saw Fife last year making it through to the final as well. So interesting, if nothing else, that we have essentially a local derby for the final.
Yep, indeed. Sticking with the Sheffield Steelers and moving away from the Challenge Cup, obviously this past weekend, No, that weekend before, I think it was, since our last podcast anyway, the Sheffield Steelers own Dowdy, Robert Dowd, achieved his 800th Elite League game against, I think it was the game against Nottingham Panthers. I know the Steelers captain is like, that's a massive milestone that he's reached. I think a week before, I think was there a hit 900 game played as well from the Steelers? Lakovitch played, yeah, 900 games for that. So I mean, fair play. Obviously the former Steelers captain Jonathan Phillips was the first player to play in 1,000 Elite League games and holds the record currently at 1,175. If it tells you anything, it just tells you that there's longevity in players to play for Sheffield. Whether that was with Sheffield the whole time or not, but I know we know it wasn't. But I mean, that's a fairly good going, and it's another one of those players who's hit another massive benchmark. But fair play.
Fair play. 800 games is nothing to sniff at.
And I guess sticking with Dowdy and also Team GB, this is your story.
Yeah, so currently playing, if you haven't been paying attention, the score is still 4-0, GB China. But Team GB earlier this week announced their leadership group for the Olympic qualifiers in Cardiff. Dowdy was named as captain alongside Liam Kirk and Mark Richardson, who've been named as alternate captains. So this is Dowd's first, I think, run at being captain. He takes over from the aforementioned Jonathan Phillips, who retired from, was supposed to retire from competitive hockey, but I think is still potentially playing games for the Steel Dogs. But obviously retired from international duties, so was not available for this weekend. The A's then, I'll ask this as a question, Marty. Liam Kirk, young guy, Couple of years now, 3-4 years in the senior setup, getting the A over the likes of people like I want to say Davy Phillips has been selected. I'm pretty sure he was selected, wasn't he?
Your good question. Your guess is as good as mine. I actually genuinely can't remember. I guess just in general of that question, I think for me it did come as a massive surprise. It did come as a surprise when I read this story earlier in the week when I seen the announcement of the captains and assistant captains. I think when I seen his name pop up as an assistant, I did think exactly. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a surprise. Um, yeah, I think
Well, I
it
mean,
was.
just to mention a few of the other, let's say, big names that you've got across that team. There, I was 100% right. The fact that Davey is there. You've got Evan Mosey, who's representing there. Brett Perlini. Ben Lake is on the team as well. Ben O'Connor, friend of the show. Ben O'Connor is also there. Um, Absolutely not having a go here at Kirky getting the A. I think he's deserving of it just for his experience with the going through the draft process, being selected by the Yotes, playing across in North America for 1-2 seasons, and then coming across to Europe, and he seems to be tearing it up in Europe as well. However, is it, if you're in the room, is Liam Kirk one of the leadership group that you want to see leading the way? Or is this part of GB
Maybe,
setting the
I mean,
groundwork for the future?
possibly that, but also possibly if we think about the mix of players that we have, maybe on that Team GB squad, the mix of older and younger players. Is there an idea that you have a younger assistant? 2 seconds before
Marty,
you
we
go.
have a goal! We have a goal! Cam Crutchlow with his second makes it 5-0 to GB against China.
Okay, you done? You done?
I'm done for now.
Yeah. Okay. As I was trying to say, is it a case of you've got such a wide range of players, both veteran players here on the team, but as also like new young blood on the team who are only kind of starting and cutting their teeth for Team GB? Is it a case of maybe bringing in a younger player to kind of almost kind of like give a bit of leadership for the other younger players and kind of lead the way in terms of being a kind of a role model type idea? I don't know, but obviously they decided among themselves that they that was the best fit, and fair enough. It did come as a surprise, but obviously they've made a decision for whatever reason, and we'll never know really why.
Well, Anthony
Sticking with
makes Anthony, I'm just going to,
sorry, go
before we move on, Anthony makes a good point about Kirk getting the A. And like I say, I wasn't having a dig at all, but he says it's not a surprise given the letter to the best player in an area he arguably could do with developing, and he'll be around the team for a while. 100% right. He is going to become a stalwart of the GB setup, and that this is the warm up for when the C moves to him. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think we've talked before about how old how maybe not how old, but how veteran the GB setup is becoming. And yeah, absolutely, moving the likes of Kirky up into the leadership group is going to make a big difference. And we're now starting to see guys like Sean Norris stepping up into the setup, and fingers crossed we see them progress through the same way. But yeah, you're 100% right, Anthony. I think in the future we probably do see Kirky with the C.
Yeah, and just sticking with Team GB, and this is something I was kind of just trying to chat about. Just there, I was kind of alluding to it whenever we were talking before we went into this period. Obviously, Team GB playing in the tournament this week. We have to obviously talk about the fact that it leaves a number of the Elite League teams which are still playing this weekend. We should highlight the fact that the Elite League is still going ahead, still playing this weekend, which baffles my brain. I think there should have been a bit of an international gap, an international break that they did last season, to allow for Team GB and allow players to kind of go off and do their own thing for their international teams. It just means that quite a few of the teams this coming weekend, although they'll still be playing, like for example, the Belfast Giants will be playing in Scotland, double headers in Scotland, but they are without, I think, 6 players, if I remember correctly, this weekend, who are all on international duty for different various teams. I mean, they're not the only team. I mean, we've also got, obviously, the Guildford Flames were playing last night without Ben O'Connor on their team. Obviously, it didn't I suppose I'm not saying it didn't matter, but like, at least they still won. So obviously it didn't have a massive detriment to them. But if you can imagine teams like Sheffield, Belfast, those teams who have numbers of international players playing for them, is there going to be a massive impact this coming weekend? Do we see things going the way against those teams who are maybe slightly depleted this coming weekend?
Well, where you've got teams who are missing as many as Belfast, then potentially. But is the saving grace the fact that Belfast now are in a very, very different position where it comes to the games this weekend? No disrespect to them, we're playing two Scottish teams who are fighting for their lives to stay in contention for playoffs. Are the Giants really in a serious frame of mind to be pushing for league points? Does it really matter at this point, or is the focus about getting players healthy for a playoff push? I think in reality they're never going to say it out loud, but I think that's what the reality is. Is it an advantage to the teams who don't have anyone who's selected for the GB setup? Of course it is. The other thing I'm not 100%, but is Kiefer away with GB, or is it just Pete who is coaching GB this weekend along with I'm assuming what do you call him, former Panthers coach Corey Nielsen. I haven't heard anything about Kiefer being away from Belfast this weekend, or about Rob Stewart running the bench for the games in Scotland. So I'm assuming he's still with the Giants.
Yeah, too.
But the big talking point that's come from all of this, and it's one that Anthony makes, is this. It is the EIHL International Break Week because Olympic qualifiers are happening. I think there's other international tournaments are also happening. We should be on a break. If the Elite League,
I agree. Yeah.
Look, the Elite League are not the only ones either. The other leagues are playing as well. The NIHL is playing across the board. If we want to take the GB setup seriously, then we 100% need to give them the space to do what they have to do. And on that, Marty, we have a 6th goal in the GB game against China with Johnny Curran, formerly of the Belfast Giants parish, now Coventry Blaze. However, being set up for the goal by two current Belfast Giants in Ben Lake and Davy Phillips for GB's 6th goal against China.
Good job. That's perfect timing because that pretty much takes us to the end, I think, of our period 1. Which means we'll be getting stuck into period 2. John, before we do so, is there anything I have missed? Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we move on to period 2?
No, I'll just pop this up. Anthony's just letting us know that there's not been any additional goals, but it is the end of the second, and MK still with the 1 goal advantage over the Swindon Wildcats.
Great. With that, we will switch over and go to period 2 of hockey. We didn't discuss who was intro in period 2, so do you want to
here we go. Period 2 is international hockey. You can tell that I am not Dave because Dave's not here, man. International hockey, anything across the pond in either direction that's just not specifically GB focused. However, I'm pretty sure we do have a GB story in here as well. Marty, probably one of the biggest pieces of international news that came out, we'll talk about it in a second. It was obviously the NHL All-Star Weekend, but a major piece of news broke from the NHL and the NHL Players Association, and this was the news that the NHL has made an agreement with the International Olympic Commission, and NHL players will take part in the Olympics.
That is right. Yeah, this past weekend or the weekend previously, it was the All-Star Weekend. As part of the All-Star Weekend, there was a number of different things came out of the All-Star Weekend. Obviously, the usual All-Star game, the All-Star skills competition, all that stuff was included. But also coming out, was 2 announcements that were made. One being this, which was the agreement being made that the NHL will return players will return to the Olympic Games in 2026 and 2030, marking it to be the first time since 2014 when the NHL had made a decision for it prior to I think it was the 2018 Winter Olympics, that the players wouldn't be happening, they wouldn't be taking a break, and therefore players wouldn't be released. The 2022 one didn't happen. Obviously, there's COVID concerns, and there was concerns around whether or not players would be allowed to go to Beijing, and would it have a risk then on the rest of the NHL when they come back from that international duty. And they have agreed through this past week. Gary Bettman made a statement to say that the NHL players will be representing their countries. They are pleased that after intense collaborative efforts with the NHL Players Association and the International Ice Hockey Federation, formally announced the NHL players will be allowed to participate in both 2026 2030 Olympic hockey tournaments. 2026 games will be held in Italy, and the host of the 2030 Olympic Games is expected to be announced later this year. Yeah, I mean, John, we talked about this, in the previous Winter Olympics. When we at the last two Winter Olympics, we've been a podcast for the last two Winter Olympics, and we talked about this at that 2018 Winter Olympics. I remember us talking about this very topic and about the fact that how there was a disappointment even from us as just general hockey fans, in that up until prior to that time, we enjoyed, and it's not to say that I didn't enjoy seeing ice hockey at the Winter Olympics the last two Winter Olympics, but there's just something hits different whenever you have the massive caliber of NHL players like Sidney Crosby's, and this will be the first time the likes of Connor McDavid will be able to represent the team, and we'll also have Austin Matthews representing. Having all these big names who have never had that opportunity to play at an Olympic level for their home nations. I mean, this must be a massive coup for them. They must be overjoyed by this decision.
Well, I think that was a big part of the buzz around this story, is because it was All-Star Weekend. A lot of these superstars, if you like, were all in one place. So a lot of your Team Canada, Team USA national pool were all in. Was it Vegas for the All-Star Weekend?
Yeah, I think it wasn't it. No,
I think
it was in Toronto.
Vegas.
It was Toronto. It was Toronto.
Toronto. That's right. Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, it was Toronto.
The Vegas of Canada. So a lot of buzz was about Sid, because let's face it, what does he have? One, maybe two Olympics cycles left in him before he decides to hang them up. But then you also look at the potential for the likes of Ovechkin, because I think it's highly anticipated. If it's not already been announced, I think it's highly anticipated that Russian athletes and Belarusian athletes will be again in the position that they can represent their country, but under the Olympic athletes from flag rather than the national flag. So rather than being completely excluded as they were at the last Winter Olympic cycle, they'll be able to go and represent again, or at least play. So the opportunity is there. The selling point for the Olympics is massive, because hockey is the biggest draw for the Winter Olympics by far. As far as events are concerned, it is the big thing. It doesn't matter what part of the world they host the games in. The ice hockey is what the biggest crowds turn out for. It's the gold medal that every country wants. So I'm massively looking forward to the product that's going to be put out there this Olympic cycle and the next Olympic cycle, as long as nothing changes and Bettman and the NHL and the Players Association and the IOC, as long as they don't decide to fall out, as they often do, the next two Olympics are looking really, really interesting.
Yeah, they are, and it is definitely a massive change from what we've been seeing, and it's great. It is great to see, and as you say, there's just something it does hit different whenever you've got those big star players, going out and playing. As you say, and as you say, the fact that you have these big names, these big, and NHL trying to get get eyes on them as much as possible across the whole world. This is the way to do it. You've got big names. The players who are playing for the NHL, those NHL teams will get constantly name dropped throughout the Olympic Olympic Games, they'll say whatever it is who plays for home team, Philadelphia Flyers or Pittsburgh Penguins, whatever it might be. It brings people to get used to those names and maybe follow up a bit more, because you have people who watch the Winter Olympics and are maybe completely new to something. Like, who knew I'd be interested in luge? You know what I mean? I watch that when it comes to the Winter Olympics. I don't watch it any other time of year. But there's people who will turn their attention to and the Winter Olympics and turn their attention to ice hockey for the first time, maybe, and they'll be watching these games and then they'll be like, right, I like it. Where do I see more of this? And then you'll hear those different teams being mentioned and stuff. So I think it's a great movement.
Anthony makes a great point. We've got NHLers taking part in the 26 games, and absolutely the way that things are going. I'm going to caveat this in a second. You can have Connor McDavid down the wing, dispossessed there by David Clements. And look, we're in pole position right now because there has been another goal, Marty. There has been another goal. At the 19-minute mark in the second period, Cade Nielsen has made it 7-0 to Great Britain against China.
Whoop, whoop. There you go. That's me being...
And Mark makes the same point that you do, that the eyes are on the sport. It's absolutely something that we need in the British game. We need more screen time. We need more broadcast time. We need the guys in the setup to be given the credit for getting the team to where they are. The coaches, the players, the sponsors, everyone who's put the time in over the last few years to make that team as successful as it is right now, they all need that time and that kudos to pay off. Because without it, what we end up with is a flash-in-the-pan moment of GB doing as well as they're doing right now, potentially, it's still a potentially right now, but potentially making it through to the Olympics, but not being shouted about. Look at the number of people involved in hockey in the country who shouted a couple of years ago about Team GB not even getting a mention for Team of the Year at Sports Personality of the Year. Yep. And it's 100% right.
Yeah.
Out of all the teams that get represented at that competition, Team GB have done a hell of a lot more and come a hell of a lot longer way as far as progression's concerned to get double golds, to get double promotion over 2 years. That team should have been recognised for that. And if it takes us to go all the way through to the Olympics to get that, then that's exactly what they need to do.
While we're talking about, obviously getting eyes on Team GB and trying to, promote that as a thing and trying to kind of get as much eyes on it as possible, is it worth having a conversation or get your thoughts on the other conversation that's been going on X this past week in relation to the decision by the powers that be to put the games, these games over this weekend behind a paywall? So paying for the games to watch the games in Cardiff, having the fact that the Cardiff rink hasn't anywhere near sold out. I mean, a lot of people seem to think that it was the wrong move, that they think that while the price might be good for like several games, price-wise, we're like, oh yeah, it's fine, but should it have been priced and should it have actually been a charge where you have to pay to watch it? What's your thoughts?
No, I think it's a massive misstep. We want the success of this team to be shown. Can you imagine how many people right now would be tuning in if this was a free stream on YouTube to watch GB be utterly dominant over China in Olympic qualifying hockey? Like, it is 7-0. Sorry, it is 7-0 in the second period. The second period is just about over. That should be free to watch. And I get that maybe they've looked at ticket sales. Do you know what? If Cardiff had been able to sell out their building for the weekend, maybe that's a different position. Is it 40 quid worth? Absolutely not. For a tournament stream pass, it's not 40 quid. I'm sorry. I think is the tournament in person is about 60 quid. Is that right? For all the games? That's all the GB games and all the other international games. It's nowhere near value to charge 2/3 of that in-person rate to watch these games on stream. Especially given, and I know we've had jibes before about midweek games and logistically impossible, but to be totally honest, for the vast majority of people to go to Cardiff for 4 days of games is logistically impossible. It just can't be done. It's the start of February. People are just recovering from Christmas. They've just been paid a week, 2 weeks ago. After all of that, I think it's a massive misstep, and you can see it. The goal highlight videos that we're seeing on social media from tonight's game that I can sit and watch even while I'm talking to you because I'm a great multitasker. There's empty seats. There's a massive number of empty seats in the Vindico Arena, and that's sad because there shouldn't be. The size of that arena, it should be sold out.
Yeah. I agree. I think I'm in agreement with you. I think whenever the conversation was being had this week on social media in relation to that, I kind of was falling into that kind of side of the conversation, the side of the argument about that was a poor decision at the end of the day to paywall it. I do think that, and some people will argue, well, if you want to watch it, then pay to watch it. And I'm like, okay, well, fair enough. But at the end of the day,
you know what?
I don't think I just it's just one of those ones where would I be able to? And I'm being honest. Do I have the time this week to sit down and watch every single game the way I would want to? No, I don't. I'm not saying I'm a busy man, but like I don't. I've got something else going on right now, and I can't. But to have the idea of that, I could just come home this evening. Okay, I was a bit late, and I've got the podcast tonight. But if I wasn't in the podcast tonight, it's nice to think that I could have came home a bit late after face off, and I could have just stuck it on, not a problem, and I could just watch wherever I got into. So if it happened to be the middle of the second period, it was the middle of the second period, and I could just watch that part forward. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing that it wasn't put out somewhere that people could easily access it, and it was more accessible, and people could get their eyes on it, and it's promoted that way.
Yeah.
But
and look, the way to look at it is you look at the product of the likes of the CHL, the Champions Hockey League. Even through the group stage, even though they changed the format and everything else, they hosted almost every game on YouTube for free. Yeah. They region blocked it. So don't get me wrong, if you wanted to get around it and didn't want to attend a game or didn't want to travel to watch your team play, you could just VPN it, which I think the vast majority of people did. But they understand that their product is universal, that people want to watch that, so they make it available. And look, it's not just the GB setup that have this problem. The Elite League has this problem. Hockey in the UK in general has this problem about making the product available. I've spoken a couple of times, and I've had the same frustration even when it comes to us trying to interact with teams. We seem stuck in this mindset of we have the best kept secret in British sports and we want to keep it that way. Why do we want to keep it that way? It's nonsense to keep it that way. Push it out there. Push the product out there. We constantly see the Elite League talking about how Elite League attendances are higher than league football in Northern Ireland, than league football in Scotland, than some National League football in England. That's fantastic. Make it bigger. What's stopping you?
Yeah.
And sadly, in some certain aspects, it's greed. It's money. It's the want to pull more money. But that's how you have a sport that implodes and becomes the Super League.
Well, yeah. Isn't that true? Sticking with international, and this is different type of international, but it was also announced at the All-Star weekend, this past weekend, that before we get to those Olympic Games later in 2026, the 2025 season in the NHL will see for the first time what they're calling the Four Nations Face-Off Tournament. The Four Nations Face-Off Tournament will see teams from Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the US face off against each other in an international competition, which will span a total of 9 days, I believe, in the middle of the 2025 NHL season. So it'll be spanning from February 12th to February the 20th, which will include 2 practice days and 7 games spanning across the 9-day period. It will mean that Connor McDavid won't have to wait until 2026 to represent Team Canada on a professional level. Now, we should say, obviously, McDavid did represent Canada before, but that was obviously at I think it was the Juniors EIHL World Championships or whatever in 2018 or that sort of thing. But this will be his first pro level representation for Team Canada, I believe. But this will happen in 2025 when those 4 teams will face off against each other. So that was announced that as part of obviously that Olympic participation, that this would also come hand in hand with that in the year previous to that. Interesting that this is going to be a competition, an international competition made up of NHL players for those different teams in the middle of the NHL season. What's your take on that?
I think it's interesting that it was announced at the same time as a return to Olympic participation. It sounds like a way of preparing the NHL to take that Olympic break again, give the national setups, if you're from one of those 4 countries anyway, it gives that national setup the chance to see what talent is available, and that's massive. Obviously, I think this is being done with a Team USA, Team Canada slant. The reason the other 2 are there is obviously because they're the biggest 2 pools of talent into the NHL outside of the US and Canada, because otherwise you just have a couple of friendly games between US and Canada, and really, what's the point of that? So by bringing in Finland and Sweden, you actually create something of value. I think it's nepotistic in its approach. Like I say, I think it's very clearly geared towards getting not just players, but I think it's actually more geared towards getting fans of the NHL ready for this broad international participation by NHL players again. But it has a clear slant that the NHL wants to see Team Canada and Team USA be as successful as possible on the international stage.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of a bit of an interesting take, as you say, that they announced that this announcement was made at around about the same time as the Olympic announcement. But again, and I don't mean to harp back to Conor McDavid, because but he seemed to be the main focus this past weekend, especially with the All-Star competition as well. He seemed to be the focus of a lot of the media attention coming to the All-Star weekend, and I think particularly for these international stories, and about the fact that, you know, the Olympics is won, and then this competition, because it was Conor McDavid in the press scrum that talked about the fact that it was a massive opportunity for him, that he had been probably one of the most vocal players in the NHL over the recent years about the fact that the NHL players should be returning to this international stage in order not just to grow the game internationally, but also at home, and how much it means to him as a player. So I mean, it's great to see, and it will be an interesting take if you think about, like, you know, you'll have the likes of your Conor McDavid on a, you know, center stage with, like, you know, facing off against Austin Matthews, who be playing for the United States. You know, you've got Sebastian Aho from Carolina Hurricanes, who'll be representing Finland, Elias Patterson from Vancouver Canucks. All these massive players representing these teams, as you say, John. It will be an interesting thing to see just how competitive this competition will be in the middle of that NHL season. But it is definitely an interesting take that it will be in the middle of that NHL season that this competition happens. Just before we leave period 2, and I just want to stick with the All-Star weekend. I know this period has been dominated by the All-Star weekend, but I wanted to just make a few comments just about the All-Star weekend, because I did catch some bits of it over the last weekend. And the main thing to take away was the fact that, like, I think, like a lot of ice hockey fans, the All-Star weekend for many a year, I'm not saying it became a joke, but it definitely became a thing where people maybe became less and less invested and less interested in it. And also not just fans, but also players. I think it's right in saying that players didn't take it just as serious, and the level of
players actively avoiding All-Star weekend. I think I've already mentioned it, but I think Ovi was infamous for having gotten injured the weekend before All-Star weekend, and therefore not taking part.
Yeah, and so this year they made a different. They decided to kind of change it up a bit. So they changed some of the skills competitions. There's a few new bits added on, which was pretty fun. But I think the big thing that they've done this weekend to try and for that weekend was to try and make it a bit more competitive. Was they actually put a $1 million prize fund, like a prize pot of money, to the overall winning team of the NHL competition, so the All-Star
Do
competition.
you know what? There's nothing motivates a bunch of millionaires to do their normal paid job than throwing more money at them. I mean, honestly.
Well, do you know what? You could say what you want, but it seemed to work because they definitely seemed to be a bit more. There definitely seemed to be a bit more competition in this week in this year's
No, there
All
was
Star.
there was competition unless you're Nikita Kucherov. Did you see his skills competition?
Yeah,
It was awful. He looked like every player at the Chunder Cup at playoff final weekend in Nottingham. He could not care less. Did you see how many attempts he had at the accuracy, the sort of wrister accuracy? So you had the three small nets down on the crease, and he was at the blue line, I think, or maybe even inside the zone, chipping pucks. He ran out of pucks. There was runners had to bring, like on ice staff, had to bring him more pucks because he was not paying enough attention. The best part of it was, though, he got booed for the limited effort that he showed during that competition.
Yeah.
And then it carried on through the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Now, I'll be honest, I didn't watch any of the rest of the All-Star weekend at all. Anything you tell me about the All-Star weekend is complete news to me because I haven't even researched it, even knowing it was on the running order. But what I do know is that he almost became like a pantomime villain.
Oh, massively.
The All-Star weekend. And
massively.
I'm here for that. I'm here for a guy turning up, being paid to turn up, and going, do you know what? What's on the line? Nothing. Who cares? I'm here for a good time.
It got to the stage during the All-Star game itself on the Saturday, and that's the bit that I was watching, and it got to the point where towards the end, obviously it went to a shootout at the end of the game because the game was tied, and even at that point, the boos, I mean, they were raining down, but as you say, proper pantomime villain, like properly egging up the crowd, giving it the whole like kind of like Hulk Hogan kind of style, listening in, kind of getting the crowd to kind of go behind him and start booing. I mean, if he was playing a heel, if you will, if you were a wrestler, he done it really well. And do you know what? I don't know if that was his whole thing, but yeah, as you say, parts of it were just like skating even slower than normal during the skills competition. There's bits and pieces there, but overall, I think as a weekend,
Buddy, we have a goal. We have a goal, and that's the wrong comment. We have a goal. Swindon have scored and have tied up their match with Milton Keynes. It is 6-6 on aggregate, with Glenn Billing tying things up there in the third period in the 47th minute.
Thank you very much for that update. Just as I was finishing
anytime.
With this, just finishing off with this story, and before we move on, I mean, I think in general, from a point of view of fans' point of view, I think definitely this year was a bit of a breath of fresh air. Both from skill point of view as well as the games themselves, because as I said, I know you made a joke about it, but having something that they were wanting to play for. Now I can't remember if the $1 million prize fund was actually like a charity donation. Then I think that I read somewhere that the players then made the decision around where the money was going to be divided into in terms of donations to charity. I don't think it was going directly into their pockets. I think there was definitely something there, because I think I heard something about Austin Matthews was talking about the fact that it was his team that took the win in the end. Team Matthews won, and I think he talked about how the team would be dividing it up, and part of his share was going to, I think it was a Toronto Children's Foundation or something anyway. So I think it was probably a charitable fund rather than actually get in their pocket type thing. And if that's the case, then fair play, and I like that.
Can we talk about the one major L that came out of the entire All-Star weekend? Was just how much FaceTime with the hockey community Justin Bieber got again.
That coat was something.
That coat on the bench was absolutely horrendous, but sure, you don't expect anything better of anyone who walks over the logo in a locker room and somehow gets forgiven for it.
I mean, he was on the ice playing as well at one point, so yeah, he got a lot of.
Do you know what? The fact that nobody took the chance to check him into the boards, that they all just went down in my estimation.
That's it. That's all I have for period 2, John. I think we've covered everything. Is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
I don't think so. I think we're ready to move on to period 3.
Perfect. We'll move on to period 3 of hockey.
Period 3 then is our general Knocky News. Knocky News is for anything and everything else in the world of hockey that doesn't fit neatly into Period 1 or Period 2, or generally just when Periods 1 and 2 are too busy and we just throw stuff into Period 3 as well. Generally, it tends to become the jersey period, let's be totally honest, and this podcast around is absolutely no different.
Hey,
Marty,
what a surprise.
We do have one like actual story, and I want to come to you first because we'll do this. We'll go into the jerseys, and then we do actually, for the first time in quite a number of weeks, we have a 14 with 14 that we'll introduce slightly later on as well. But we've announced it on social media, so everyone knows it's Jordan Kelsall. But let's come to your story first. About some confidence building for visually impaired players.
Yes, so something probably some people don't know is that I work for a charity organisation that works alongside people who are blind and partially sighted or visually impaired. So a lot of the stories, so this story came by me because I think it was one of those ones where in the job that I work in, people know that I'm a hockey fan, and therefore someone in work was all like, Martin will like this story. Let's send it to him. So I was sent the story of this visually impaired the hockey world based over in the United States, where the growth of visually impaired hockey has increased over the last number of years. For anybody who doesn't know, visually impaired athletes, similar to a normal game of hockey, are on the ice rink. However, the difference is that they will be using metal sticks, which sounds dangerous, instead of the normal kind of carbon fiber kind of stick that they're used to doing. Mainly because then obviously the metal stick, when tapped off the ice, will create more sound. Therefore, can kind of then audibly tell people when to pass, where to pass to. And what they do tend to do is these teams are made up of both visually impaired players, but as well as that, they'll have some players who will have some form of useful vision that will allow them, will kind of maybe then have to kind of maybe blindfolded, or in some instances have players who will help control the game by kind of explaining where maybe other players are. So there's a lot to it. But at the end of the day, this is kind of something that's growing, and it's played predominantly in the United States. There is some parts of it here in the UK, obviously as expected, not as big here in the UK, as it's only maybe some small little aspects and little small pockets of it happening. After this story came through, I did ask one of my colleagues who works kind of in the community part of our organization if it's something she thought they could maybe create, and she was like, "Well, do you want to come along and help out with that?" And I was like, interesting. Anyway, back to the story. In the United States, it is massive. It's a big confidence building program that's going on there. Massive transition for people who maybe have played hockey as juniors and then maybe have lost their sight in later in life and then going to it. But you also have players who have started the game having known absolutely nothing about the world of hockey. It's a fascinating story. There's a couple of different videos out there, which I'll try and link to for anybody to see. But it has been growing since around about 2016. One of the original members was what was called the Washington Blind Hockey Club. But you also have other teams out there, which I think some of the names are quite apt for what they decided to choose for their names. We also have the Hartford Brailers, which clearly is a great name, and we also have the Maine Blind Bears, which is also another great name. The concept for blind hockey was initiated as early as the 1970s, but it wasn't until about 2015 where the sport came to the USA and kind of has got a bit bigger, and it's kind of maybe grown as well in reputation over the last number of years. But yeah, it's just a quick story, and I just wanted to kind of highlight it, and I'll maybe just throw it up as a little link for anybody who might be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've thrown up a comment here from Anthony as well. Again, absolute font that he is. Ice hockey, Blind Ice Hockey UK with free taster sessions. Saturday the 24th of February, so not long to go, a couple of weeks, and that's at Sapphire Ice and Leisure if you're in the Romford area of London. So if it's of interest to you, or you know anyone who it will be of interest to, push that to them and let them have an opportunity to play a bit of blind ice hockey.
And I will,
Marty,
and Anthony, I'm going to share that too. actually with my work colleagues as well, especially the ones down in and around that area. So yes, thank you very much. I'll pass that on.
Marty, we have goals to talk about. Goals to talk about. Anthony has been good enough to throw this up here, and I did see it while you were talking, but I didn't want to interrupt you while you were talking about that last story. We have an 8th goal for GB. Rob Dowd has added an 8th. However, China have responded. Finally, they have responded through Zhao has managed to put China on the board. They have got something like 16 minutes to rescue this game. I wonder, can they do it? We sit on tender hooks and hope that this game ends before the end of the podcast so that we can bring a final result to you. Marty, that brings us on then. The next part of what we're going to talk about is what we love talking about in Nocky News. We are going to talk all about jerseys. So, I think, are you steering the ship on this one? Are you going to throw this stuff up on the screen? Here we go.
There you go.
It's February, everyone. It is the month of Valentine's. Next weekend, there's some for this weekend coming and some for next week. The middle of next week, Valentine's Day, obviously, is Wednesday, the 14th of February. And we have some lovely specialist jerseys. Now, I'm gonna chat to you after we've gone through these, Marty, about sort of special jerseys and one-offs, because there's been quite a lot of conversation about this over the last week or so online. It's from one fan base in particular. But let's have a look at what has been released. First one is the Nottingham Panthers. They have released this Valentine's jersey, sticking to the traditional pinks, whites, and throwing it on a black jersey. Now, as opposed to the Pride jerseys, I'm here for the black jersey with the sort of colour shock of pink. What's your thoughts on this jersey for a start?
I'm just gonna like preface this part of this segment of jerseys this year, this podcast, by just saying I just don't like Valentine's jerseys at all. Don't care what they look like. I hate them all. I just think they're so like, yeah. I just don't like them. Why
do you live your life with no love?
Because I have never and will never celebrate Valentine's Day. Me and my wife have never celebrated Valentine's Day in the 16 years we've been together. Yeah, it's just not something we do, and I just don't see the point in Valentine's Day because you got no, John, because
heartless
you can
man.
no, John, because you can declare your love for the person that you love every single day, not just one day per year.
You're absolutely right. I love you.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, you know what? It's fine. The wings.
Do you know what? I'm seeing Mark's comment here.
God,
You're 100% right, Mark. Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. Bret Hart vibes from this jersey. 100%.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That is
spot
on. Yeah.
We'll leave it there from a Panthers fan to get the last word on that, because do you know what? He's 100% right. And Mark, I'll move it on to the next one. Five Flyers coming out with, and I've said this on social media already, this is another killer jersey.
Oh, but would I know that is supposed to represent Valentine's Day?
It's pink.
Yeah, but
do you know what? Leave aside that it's for Valentine's. Leave aside that it's for Valentine's. We know what the five colours are. We know that it's the blue, the white, the gold in the logo. Just the general graphic design of this jersey, I absolutely love it. It shouldn't work, but it works.
It's tidy, but again, like, you know, as I said, as I preface this, I'm not a fan of Valentine's jerseys. But if you're gonna Valentine's a jersey, like, throw on disgusting hearts and just throw on like cupids, whatever it might be. This does not.
Do you know
what it is? Say Valentine's in any way.
I'm the exact opposite. See when you end up with what I'm sure will be a very well put together Glasgow Valentine's design that they absolutely won't have stolen from some online store from another designer. But those jerseys get too much for me. When someone actually puts a bit of thought and design and, I don't know, just tries to do something simple I think that's when jerseys work. And this one works for me in a way that the Panthers one didn't. And in a way that a lot of one-off jerseys this season especially just haven't worked for me.
I would go for Panthers over this one easily.
Absolutely not. You have no idea what you're talking about. Moving on. The Manchester Storm. So this, to me, this is right up your street, Morty. This is exactly what you were talking about. There's your pink glove hearts. There's your insane graphics going on in the background.
Yeah.
All of it on top of Lightning Jack.
Yeah.
I hate this. I genuinely hate this.
I can clearly tell what that is. I can clearly tell what they're trying to do with that jersey and what it's trying to represent. So therefore, they're on the right track. Yeah.
Technically, it's horrendous, but there's no. My point is that there's no originality with it. All they've done is change a couple of colors inside their logo. They haven't done anything original with the logo.
But
what's the make the eyes hearts?
I don't know.
I like the little. All that.
I like the little ghosted heart there at the background. In the background, you can see where it's the big, it's very hard to describe it, but there's like a big, massive heart in dark black or dark red, just behind the logo. Oh, I agree with Kevin. It's awful. Because they all. But I definitely I could see that it's Valentine's. I can see what they're going for. Yeah,
it's grim. It's grim. It's worse than Nottingham's for me. It's bottom of the pile so far. Bottom of the pile. Let's see what we've got next. Right. Sorry. How does this blue monstrosity say anything about Valentine's?
It's got hearts.
The Coventry Blaze have come out with this. They've stuck to their colours and they've just... Somehow it looks like their Dragon Scorch logo is drowning in a sea of blue hearts. I don't understand this jersey at all.
When you first put this up, I thought it was bubbles. I didn't see the heart straight away. I genuinely thought it was bubbles I was looking at.
When I was searching for jerseys that were for Valentine's for this year, I honestly thought that this was posted in error. What part of that is Valentine's?
No. Well, hearts, give them that.
Oh, come on.
No, I agree. No. Yeah.
It's brutal. Do you know what? It's the worst one so far.
Okay.
It's
I agree.
just
I agree.
just brutal.
Yeah,
it's just brutal.
Yeah.
Right. We have another couple and we're stepping down to the EIHL this time. We are going to have a look at the MK Lightning. So, Marty, thoughts on this one? Does it tick the boxes for you?
Well, it ticks the box in that I know straight away that it's for Valentine's Day. The weird design at the bottom of it, though, I don't know. That bottom part of it, I'm just kind of like that weird hexagon thing. I'm kind of like, is it supposed to be like ring ropes for again like a boxing ring or like a wrestling ring, or is it someone? Does someone take an Irish dancing costume and take the little design off the bottom of an Irish dancing costume and stick it on a jersey? Because it's a bit weird, but yeah, I can.
Do you know what I think? Do you know what I think they've tried to do with this? Is I think they've tried to go that middle of the road between what you want to see from a jersey and what I want to see from a jersey. So it's that combination of the simple graphic design that can come together and make something look really nice and really appealing. That's what they've tried to do with the bottom. They've added in a very simple, mind you, gaudy heart around their logo. But again, I think where it falls down is they haven't done anything original with the logo. They've just got the lightning bolt there.
Why do I never just zoom in rather than just me going closer to the screen? Sorry, kind of say yeah, Anthony, where are you seeing bolts of like how are they bolts of lightning? I'm like,
it's on the sides where it goes like the zigzags.
Okay, I did get my eyes tested.
He says helping people recover from sight loss. So that's MK's. Then, I think this is the last one that we're going to have a look at. Solway. Now, I'll be the first to say it. Solway have had some absolute cracker jerseys this season. They have done a lot of things incredibly well. This is not one of them. And Marty, quick update. We have a tie after regulation. It is 6-6 on aggregate, and they are going to overtime in the Thunderdome.
Just what I needed. Just what I needed. Thank you so much. Do you feel that this jersey, the biggest blasphemous part of this jersey is the fact that it looks like the Scottish Solitaire there is in pink and white instead of the traditional blue? I
have absolutely no problem with Solitaire being in pink. I have a pink Scotland rugby shirt from a couple of seasons ago, which did exactly the same thing. Absolutely love it. My biggest problem with this is it's the lack of originality. It's nothing's different. Nothing is special about it. All they've done is change the colourway of it. That's all they've done. They've just made their jersey pink.
Sure, it's pink.
And that doesn't fit the bill for me.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would say that more shouts to me as a charity breast cancer awareness night jersey than it does a Valentine's Day jersey.
You're 100% right. It's got the... Now, I will say that for anyone who's listening rather than watching, they have put some designs up on the shoulders. And as I'm saying that, Anthony's just pointing it out to us as well. But it's not enough. It doesn't do enough. And I am more of a fan when teams do something original with their logo than this. So why... Now, admittedly, maybe the imagery would be a bit weird, but rather than biting a puck, maybe why isn't the shark biting a heart? Now, it might be that that's better for like the opposite of Valentine's Day, where a shark is eating somebody's heart. That might be a bit weird. But do something different with it. It just seems too simple. Not enough. Not enough effort. Thank you very much, Solway.
Generally, is that the last one? Yeah, it is.
That is the last one.
Generally, obviously, as you kind of said, John, I mean, obviously Valentine's jerseys we're used to. We see them every single year. Belfast Giants this past weekend, I think maybe caused a bit of a conversation online to happen around these special edition one-off jerseys. Obviously, the Belfast Giants doing 2 charity jerseys this past weekend here in Belfast in the SSE Arena. Obviously, we talked about it on our last podcast. They had the Chinese New Year celebrations in conjunction with the Chinese Association in Northern Ireland and raising funds for them. And on the first night, I think was the Friday and Saturday, wasn't it? Saturday and Sunday. On the first night, then they had it was another charity night on the night before, and again, all jerseys were being put up for shoved back, and all proceeds were going to again another charity fund. It did start a bit of a conversation about whether or not one-off jerseys were becoming a bit too commonplace in the Elite League. It also started a conversation about the fact that the Belfast Giants were pretty open and honest and very clear about where their money goes when it comes to these types of jerseys. So Pride jerseys obviously started the conversation. Where did the money go for the Pride jerseys? Belfast Giants stated it was going to Rainbow Project here in Northern Ireland. And same game of this past weekend, those 2 jerseys this past weekend, and all proceeds were going to there. It did start a bit of a conversation for some other teams about, why have they not kind of maybe been more vocal about where their money was going in relation to the money that they brought in. It's stated that money has been donated. Do you think that's I suppose, do you think that's a good enough conversation? Is that a conversation that should be had? Is it something that should be more, most teams or all teams should be more open and honest about and more transparent about where the money's going?
Absolutely. I'm going to come back and answer your question properly, but we've had a goal and we've had a game-winning goal. And it's Disco Liam Stewart with the overtime winner for Milton Keynes, who have booked their place in the National Division Cup final against the Hull Seahawks. Congratulations to MK. Yeah. The jersey conversation, I understand it. I do, and this is I am a big fan of the one-off jerseys, but I'm a fan of them with purpose, where I can be confident in that purpose. That gets diluted by having one every week, and and some of the conversation that I've heard about this, I totally understand. It dilutes the identity of the team. So someone at the start of the season loves the home jersey, loves the away jersey, whatever. They pony up their money for it, they pay the team, and they walk away with a jersey that represents their team for that season. Then when they see every week or every other week a one-off jersey that everyone, rightly so, will put their hand in their pocket and will pay for shirt off the back tickets, or will bid for jerseys, will bid on auctions, will buy them at a set price, whatever it is. That can get frustrating, and I totally understand that frustration, because I am one of the people who understands that. I would prefer to see a solid identity built with the uniform. The uniform's a big important part of sports. What I'm not saying at all is don't do them. And what I'm not saying is let's end up in a position like the NHL, where they say they'll produce them, but they never actually wear them, or they only wear them in warm-ups. In fact, I think we're in the position now they don't even wear them for warm-ups. That's not where we want to be. We've been quite outspoken, and I've been quite outspoken on the podcast about the fact that I believe that showing inclusivity through the uniforms is massively important, where we've seen it for things like Pride Night. I'm incredibly proud to have my own Pride jersey for the Belfast Giants. Things like Indigenous nights in the NHL, I think those are incredibly important. But it has to come with balance. And I totally understand the frustration that some fans have had across different teams and different leagues about this. And I think that there is a balance that needs to be struck, and it's an incredibly difficult balance to find. And I think it's meriting of conversation. And that's a conversation that will continue, no doubt, because we are in early February, and we will, even after Valentine's, we will not have seen the end of the one-off themed or charity jerseys. There will be more to come. There will be the absolute pandemonium that comes with the playoff jerseys. It's still to happen later on this season. So, yeah, it's a bigger conversation. Marty, another point, we have another goal in the GB China game. This time Ben Davies has put notch number 9 on the board for GB, with assists from Liam Kirk and Sam Jones.
Great job. That's it then. I don't think there's any other stories for this period, is there, John? Nope.
No, we have nothing else. So we will move nicely on to chat to Jordan Kelsall, who was very giving of his time. And I want to say very much thank you to the Nottingham Panthers organisation as well, who were very free with their time as well, and settled back in for about 14, 15 minutes as Jordan Kelsall joins us on 14 with 14. Pleased to be joined on another edition of 14 with 14 by young Nottingham native Jordan Kelsall. Jordan's a two-time under-18 England champion, a two-time EIHL Cup champion, a two-time World Junior Championship under-20s bronze medalist, and an EIHL Series champion. Currently playing for his hometown team in the Panthers and wearing number 14. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Kelsall. Jordan, thanks for agreeing to have a chat with me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, man. So, Jordan, the idea of 14 with 14 is that we get an idea of who players are both on and off the ice. So it's not the usual interview. There will be a few questions that you're probably not being briefed for, but they're all just about you. It's to get an idea about who you are both on and off the ice. So if you're okay with that, I've got a first sort of icebreaker question. It's one of these horrible team building questions that you get asked at these events. What's your go-to coffee order?
Black Americano.
Oh, my man.
I would love like a latte or something, but milk just isn't the one for me. So Black Americano it is.
I'm in the same boat as you. Dairy's not my thing either.
Yeah.
So looking at hockey then, Jordan, how did you get started in the game? How did you get your start in hockey?
It first started here at the National Ice Centre when my mum and dad brought me down for like a parent and toddler little skate. So I used to come skating when I was really young, and they would like throw toys on the ice and stuff that you could play with, and just kind of like to get you out there. And kind of did that, progressed a little bit, was obviously enjoying it. And then my parents had season tickets with the Panthers, so I would kind of come along with them and watch the team. And then when I was about 4, I tried ice hockey, and as I continued and continued to play, kind of asked them like, could I do it, like properly, really try. And just obviously always in love with the game. So from starting really young, I've kind of just, it's continued from there really.
That's good to know. My daughter's 19 months, so she's getting about ready to take her first steps on the ice. Guaranteed she'll be better than me straight away anyway, so it's good to know that's where the start is. So looking at number 14, obviously podcast is door 14. So we like to ask the number 14s, why 14? Does it hold any special significance for you?
I used to wear 14 when I was playing for the Nottingham junior system here. Just kind of, it was quite random. I always used to wear it. And when I moved away and played for other teams, 14 was retired, so I could never really wear it. And down in Swindon, it was retired. So when I had the opportunity to come back, when I was in Swindon, I wore 22. And 22 is retired here by Paul Lady. So I kind of was like, a perfect time to put back on what I used to wear here and wore 14 again. So yeah, when I was a junior, I wore it. So that was kind of why.
Was it a number that was just handed to you, or did you?
Just handed to me like completely random, and it kind of stuck. So yeah, I like it.
Cool. So looking away from the game, if you want to switch off from what's going on the ice, what's your favourite movie or TV show to binge watch, or the one that you'll watch over and over again just to have that noise in the background?
Yeah, recently I would say The Traitors, but
don't spoil anything. I haven't seen the last 2.
I'm midway through season 2, but if I was to binge watch something, we often just put Friends on. But yeah, right now The Traitors. So yeah,
nice. So you kind of mentioned about your parents bringing you down to the NIC and everything. So it may be the same answer here, but I'm going to ask, who or what do you think's been the biggest influence on your hockey career so far?
Yeah, it was definitely my parents. My parents never played, just watched. So the support that they've given me, my entire kind of career to keep, pushing me forward, and also like the sacrifice that they've made for me to, play the sport I love now professionally. I've kind of always looked up to them, and my dad, he was sporting in cricket and football. So I can't play football at all. I tried cricket a little bit, but hockey just stuck for me. And kind of them always pushing me along and being supportive really helped. So I would say my parents.
Good. It's a consistent thread, I think, throughout a lot of these interviews that I've done, that parents seem to be the thing that a lot of players hold up there as being the biggest influence they've had. So, Jordan, let's put you in the locker room pre-game. You've been handed the aux cord, well, old school maybe the aux cord. Now it's you've signed in the Bluetooth on the speakers. Yeah. What are you playing to hype up the guys?
To hype up the guys, I'm not sure. Kind of like pop music, kind of like the radio hits and stuff like that. Maybe with a little remix to kind of like fire the guys up a little bit. But it's usually not me, if I'm honest. Usually the other guys have I don't really want that responsibility, so it's fine if the other guys have it. But yeah, some kind of like pop remix or something like that. Yeah.
You don't want that sleeper sort of little ballad that's sneaking around in your playlist to play over the locker room.
No mishaps if I just don't do it. So we're good. Yeah.
Good. So Jordan, I rattled off a couple of the successes that you've had so far in your career, right at the very start there. But to your mind, what's been the highlight moment of your career so far?
I would say representing Great Britain for sure. We in the under 18s World Championships and under 20 World Championships when we was in Estonia, winning a medal has always been kind of a big highlight for me. In that situation, we weren't fighting for a gold medal or getting silver if we lost. It was actually playing for a bronze medal, which weirdly was more competitive in that one game situation, and to be able to win a medal was awesome. And then unfortunately, when we hosted the World Championships, we lost out on gold. But being in those games and playing for Great Britain is always something I dreamed of. So being able to do that was definitely a highlight. And then I guess domestically, like playing in the Champions Hockey League was pretty cool. My first year here, and then the Continental Cup, we lost in the final. So there's been some pretty good, highlights. Not always, lifted the trophy, but just accomplishing those things has been pretty cool along the way, to be honest.
It's amazing. It's a lot of incredible experiences for a young guy, definitely.
Yeah.
So you're a good few years now into your pro career, having come through, as you mentioned, the Nottingham and the Swindon junior programs. You've made it into top tier in the country, having spent time in the EIHL as well. Development is always top of people's agendas now when they're talking about young guys like yourself coming through, and you mentioned about representing GB and the role of the leagues in the country and developing that next GB talent. Is it a difficult decision these days for young guys like yourselves when looking at the league that you want to play in? Obviously, Elite League has its fairly steep import number. You drop down into the league below, you're almost guaranteed ice time. Is it a difficult decision now, or when the Elite League comes knocking, is it an easy one?
I suppose it is difficult now, with the blend of the imports and the Brits in our league. I think for me, it's about what role you're going to have in each situation and kind of figuring out what you want to get from each one, right? So, like, if you want to be, a power play player and playing a significant amount of minutes, then maybe you need to look at something else versus, maybe going to a bigger team here, just with the nature of how the imports are. But I think it's just about weighing up what you personally need for your game to maximize, your development and what you're looking to do. And having said that, I also don't think going necessarily down a league is always the best option. I think if you can play at the highest possible level you can, you always should do. And, I've always aspired to play as high as I can, and I still do. And I think if an opportunity comes, you always have to look at them. And that's my kind of take on it, and that's how I approach it. And just trying to be the best I can be and play as high a level as I can, really. So that's kind of how I've looked at it.
That's a great outlook. So, as one of the young lads in the room this year, let's say a coach asks you to organise a team day. And I know you said you don't even like to take the aux cord in the locker room, but let's say you've been asked, you're doing the team day. What would you take the lads to do?
Like a team day out or something?
Yeah.
Okay. My kind of like ideal team day out, if it's in the summer, would say we start the season, would be like, I don't know, go watch some like cricket or football or something, and maybe go out for dinner after, and then kind of like we have a few places in town here like Roxy's and stuff where you can go play games like snooker and pool and ping pong, shuffleboard and all that. So that would kind of be my go-to, just to bring the guys together a little bit, have some fun, and mix it with a bit of sport maybe too.
Very good. I think you're the first guy who's not said golf at the very start, so I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I do like playing golf, but sometimes 4 or 5 hours is too much. So.
Yeah. So you talked about the aspiration of playing at the highest level as well. And my next question kind of comes back to that a little bit. Is, do you have any major aspirations as far as your hockey career is concerned? Do you have a picture in your head of an I made it moment that you'd love to hold on to through the rest of your life once you're finished playing?
Yeah, I think it's tough to say truly you ever make it, because the competition's so high, it's really difficult to not only get a place, but keep it and push on. So I really want to make the Great Britain national team. Having played the under-18s and under-20s, that's something that I really want to do. But to do that, I have to continue to develop and get better, and play at a higher level here in our own league to warrant a place there. Because that team's so good right now. Very successful. We're back in the top division, so to break into that kind of mold is going to be a big feat. But that's the main goal that I have, that I'm really focusing on, and to do that, it's just about playing as well as I can for Nottingham and having success here, and I think that should lead to that. So not really a made it moment in mind, but that's definitely something that I'm looking to do.
Not so much the big one, but the next one.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. Better way of looking at it.
So, away from the game, then, how do you switch off, Jordan? How do you put hockey to one side? Have you got any other interests away from the game?
Yeah, so I just graduated university. So big interest of mine is kind of like finance and investing and that side of it. So I write a blog every week, so I'm trying to build that up at the moment. It's been very time consuming.
Plug it, go for it, plug it.
Yeah, no, it's not really for. I don't want to spread it too far. I'm just trying to, develop a process away from the rink where, maybe a little business idea or something. So yeah, finance is a big one, but to kind of switch off completely, I guess just spending time with family and friends and stuff, and yeah, that's something that I really enjoy. So not much time off hockey, so you have to chill out when you can.
Yeah. What does pre-game look like for you then? Let's say, for example, at a home game in Nottingham. We know that a lot of hockey players are a superstitious bunch. So have you got any rituals that you like to stick to on a game day?
I usually arrive 2.5 hours before face-off, just so I have enough time to prepare everything, my sticks and my equipment and stuff. And then not really rituals before a game. I play two-touch every football before every game, before every warm-up, and get my own warm-up in. But I'm not extremely superstitious. I just try to relax and get ready for the game. So I would say just arrive in quite early, and then get ready. It's pretty
nice.
much it.
I've been asking everyone that I've been interviewing then if you have an NHL team that you follow. You can see over my shoulder for my sins, I'm a Nashville Predators fan. But do you have one that you follow or that you grew up following?
Yeah, I follow the Rangers. So funny story, my first NHL game was Rangers against the Islanders. We went on a trip to New York, and my dad follows the Devils, so there's always that little rivalry because he loved Brodeur, so we have that little rivalry together. But yeah, the Rangers is my team.
And the $1 million question then, Rangers for the Cup this year?
Oh, I'd love to see it, but you just never know. They seem to struggle in the playoffs in that side of the conference. So
join the club. Join the club here with these guys. Last question then, Jordan, and this is one I've asked everyone at the end of these interviews, is if you could go back, and I know for you it's not that far back, but if you could go and give 10-year-old you one piece of advice, what would it be?
If you find something that you really enjoy, just stick with it, because it's so difficult when you grow up to really find, say a job or whatever, that you really truly enjoy and love. So if that's sport, if that's a specific industry, job, just go with it and just give it your all, because you never know if you don't try. So, I'm so fortunate that, I love hockey and I get to play it for a living, but whatever it may be, just give it your all and give 100%, because, that's all anyone can ask from you. So that's what I would say. But, there's so many, I say 10-year-old kids, so many young kids playing hockey now and doing that. So the future's bright, I think.
Wise words on young shoulders there. Jordan, massive thank you very much for giving up your time to chat with us and giving insight into you both on and off the ice, and good luck for the rest of the season with Panthers.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Cheers,
mate.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Jordan for taking the time to have a chat with John. It really does. It does. We really do appreciate the time that all the players give and the teams as well for helping us kind of reach out to the players and getting those chances to interview them. John seemed like a really nice guy as well. Have a chat with.
Genuinely, really nice young guy. Like you said, massive thanks to him for giving up his time. Not only was he just after training, the poor guy was in the middle of a house move as well. So to give me sort of the 15-20 minutes that he did, he didn't have to do it. None of the players have to do it, and we're incredibly grateful for the ones that do, and for the teams that do engage. And I've got to give a massive shout out here to Chris Ellis as well from the Panthers organisation as well. He could not have been more helpful, and had a really nice sort of 5-10 minute chat with Chris before we got Jordan on as well, and massive thanks for what they've done for us this week on the podcast as well. But yeah, genuinely really nice guy. I haven't met a bad guy yet doing 14 with 14.
Wouldn't think so.
The guys that we've spoken to, all fantastic. Can't understand why more teams don't want me chatting to their players.
Oh well, it's we'll get what we can, and we'll appreciate what we do get, and maybe in the future, maybe in the future seasons, maybe they'll cave and kind of like, okay, let's let John talk to someone.
They'll realize
yeah.
just how good I am and how good I can be for their brand.
Wow.
Marty, before you go any further, because I know what you're going to try and do. You're going to try and wrap things up here, but we have final news from the GB China game. And that is that Nathaniel Halbert, during our interview with Jordan Kelsall, added the 10th marker. And that game has now concluded. The game finishes 10-1 to GB against China. The next games for GB, might as well plug it while we're here. They'll play Serbia on the 10th, and then they'll play Romania on the 11th. Now, Romania and Serbia played earlier today, with Romania taking a 4-0 win. So clearly, Romania are the team to beat here in this situation, but they still have to get through Serbia first, with hopes of making it through to the Olympic Games.
And by the time it comes to our next episode, we will know how these games all panned out. And with that, we will close off this week's episode. As usual, you can get involved. You can listen to our previous podcasts on door14hockey.com. You can also check them out on your usual podcast providers of choice. Don't forget to leave us a rating or a comment. We really do appreciate it. John, this is where you can plug the YouTube channel. John? You can plug the YouTube channel? Yeah.
All right, okay, sorry. You can find us at Door14 Hockey on YouTube, where you'll find all the video episodes. You will also find a wonderful little section that we've put together for the 14 with 14 interviews as well.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the little bell thing that's down here somewhere as well. You can obviously get involved with us. Send us your questions, your stories, interact with us. We love hearing from you all. Send us those through our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also John's odd TikToks. And I don't mean odd as in like they're odd. I mean like the odd time you put a TikTok up. Yeah.
I'll be honest. Look, I was sick last week, and that's why there weren't more last week, okay? I'm the only person who does
that's not what I meant.
the TikTok.
No. I just meant that the last TikTok I watched was odd. That's genuinely what I mean. I watched it and I went, what? Anyway, we'll talk about it off air. But you can check out all of our social media channels at Door14 Hockey. We really do appreciate it when you do interact with us and have a chat. So please do reach out. We do love hearing from you. And that's it for this week.
Reach out.
We should be back in 2 weeks' time. Who we'll have on the podcast, we don't know. So it'll be a surprise, even to me. But in the meantime, we will sign off for this week. I'm Marty.
I'm John.
Have a great week.